Hello everyone, and welcome to another Photron video tech tip. My name is Shane Kirksey and I'm an applications engineer with Photron USA based out of San Diego, California. Today we'll be discussing how to set up your SAX2 and SAZ cameras to utilize the dual Ethernet download option. We'll cover what hardware is required, the necessary network settings, and at the end I'll show you how to reset your camera's Ethernet settings without losing your image data. First, let me tell you the benefit of using this feature. With a good PC using one Ethernet port from the SAX2 or SAZ, you can expect to offload around 4 gigabytes of data per minute. So a camera with 64 gigs of memory will take about 16 minutes to offload. Using the dual gigabit download, you can cut that in half. So now a camera with 64 gigs of memory will take just 8 minutes to offload. Just to give you some perspective, a few short years ago this download would have taken close to 1 hour. So what hardware do you need to make this work? The bottom line is you're going to need 2 gigabit network adapters. If you're in a lab type environment and are using a desktop computer, you can purchase a dual port network adapter that attaches directly to your motherboard. If you are like most customers and utilize a laptop with your camera, you will need to add an additional gigabit port by using an express card or a USB to gigabit network adapter. Your data download can only go as fast as your slowest network adapter. So buy a quality network adapter that supports jumbo packets up to 9,000 bytes. Usually the setting is 9,014 bytes. This point is critical. Both network adapters must support up to 9,000 byte jumbo packets or you're wasting your time. Okay, so here's my setup. You can see here that I've got an SAX2, I've got one PC, and I've got 2 network adapters. My PC has one native gigabit port, and I've added a gigabit express card network adapter. Since the 2 adapters will have different IP addresses that correspond with the Ethernet port on the camera, it's a good idea to label them. Now we're going into the computer's network and sharing center to configure both adapters, but before we do, here's a simple diagram showing the setup and the IP addresses we will assign. Again, one camera, either an SAX2 or an SAZ, one PC with 2 network adapters, they must be gigabit and support up to 9,000 byte jumbo packets, and we're going from port 1 of the camera to one of the ports on the computer and port 2 of the camera to the other ports, and we'll configure those IP addresses here in just a minute. Alright, so now let's go into your network and sharing center. There's a few different ways to get there, but what I always like to do is go to your network icon in the bottom right of your Windows computer and just click Open Network and Sharing Center. If you've got Windows 10, it's going to look a little bit different. This is a Windows 7 machine. So now you go over to Change Adapter Settings, and now this lists the network adapters that you have on your computer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to disable my wireless, and we see the 2 network adapters here. So this is my native network adapter, and this is my express card adapters you see here. So first let's go into the native adapter. You can just right click and go to Properties. And now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to set up jumbo packets, because by default most network adapters are going to have the jumbo packets disabled. So go into this Configure button here, and now on this window that pops up, go to the Advanced tab. And again, these are going to look different for different network adapters, but in your settings or your property list here, go to Jumbo Packet and make sure that it's set to its largest size, 9,014 bytes. A couple other things we're going to look at is power management. In power management, we want to make sure that energy efficient Ethernet is turned off. as well as in some power management windows you will be given the option to turn off the network adapter to save power. You don't want that. You don't want any chance of your computer turning off your network adapter. So we're good here. So let's click OK. Now I'm going to go into the second port and we're going to do the same thing for jumbo packets. Go to Properties, Configure, Advanced tab. And now you see it looks a little bit different. Now it's a property list. We go down to jumbo packet and we're set to 9014 bytes. And here, this is where we would want to look for energy efficient Ethernet. It's not there. Go to power management and see this is checked. So we want to uncheck this. We don't want the computer to turn off this device to save power. And click OK. So now both of our network adapters are set to allow the largest possible jumbo packet size. Your camera would probably operate without this setting, but your download would be extremely slow. So now let's go into these network adapters. We want to set the IP addresses. As you can see in this picture, port 1 and port 2 have IP addresses assigned by default. So what you want to do is take a note of what these are, and we're going to assign the IP address on the computer accordingly. So my native port, my native network adapter is going to be plugged into port 1. So let's do that one first. Right click on it and go to Properties. And now go down to Internet Protocol version 4, Properties. And by default it's probably going to say obtain an IP address automatically. So we're going to use the following IP address. Since it's going into port 1, our IP address is going to be 192.168.0.1. And now if we click on the subnet mask, it's going to automatically populate with 255.255.255.0. Now you see here that the ending number is 1. The default number for the camera is 10. So your IP address for your network adapter is 1, IP address for the camera is 10. So we're good there, so we'll click OK. And now we'll go and do the same thing for the second port. Properties, Internet Protocol version 4. And this IP address is going to be slightly different, 192.168.1.1. So here, the second port on the camera as well as the second port on your computer are going to be .1 and then whatever. So 1 for the network adapter and 10 for the camera. 192, fix that, 168.1.1. Alright, so now our IP addresses are set up correctly. So we'll go ahead and close this down. Okay, now that our settings are correct, we'll open PFV, and we see that on the back of the camera both LEDs are blinking, which means that we are communicating with both ports. Alright, and there's our image. At this point you can't tell any difference between a single port and a dual port configuration. But now let's go here into the top left, Options and Configuration, and then go into your network configuration setup. Now these settings only apply to the first port. As long as your IP addresses are set up correctly, everything that's going on the second port is going to be completely transparent to you. You don't have to do anything to necessarily turn on the second port. The software is going to recognize it, and it's going to automatically, when you download, start downloading to both ports. So auto detection 192.168.0xxx, that's for your first port. 1000 base T packet size almost always is set to auto, and connect mode is almost always unchecked. Some exceptions to that rule, but normally that's the case. So let's go ahead and make a recording and test the download. Alright, so let's just make a recording of the outside of the Photron office here. And let's save that. We always recommend downloading an MRAW because this is going to give you your full 12 bits of data with no compression, and generally it's the fastest offload. Let's go ahead and save this. And we see for 32 gigs of data, we're going to expect about 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And we'll come back when this is almost done. Alright, we're going to pick it back up here now that we're almost done downloading. And it's a good result. So we've downloaded 32 gigs of data in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So very nice. So you probably would have taken twice that long if you're using just a single port. And again, I want to stress that if you didn't have your jumbo packet set up, you would have taken much longer than that. So jumbo package is very important. Now let's say your event happens and for some reason you've lost communication with your camera. First of all, check all the obvious things like whether or not the camera lost power out on the test site, or maybe the Ethernet cable or the fiber optic cable got cut by some shrapnel. If it's none of those things, you may want to reset the Ethernet card inside the camera, and you can do that without having to lose power or repower your camera and without losing any image data. And this is how you do that. So you push and hold user button number 1 on the rear panel of the camera. You hold it for 10 seconds and you'll see the LEDs scroll back and forth. If you were to let go there, it's just resetting the card inside the camera. Your IP address is maintained if you've got a custom IP address. If you continue to hold it down for about 5 more seconds, you'll see those LEDs scroll back and forth again. Now this not only resets the card but also resets the IP addresses to their default. So if the first thing, resetting the card, doesn't work, you're not able to connect, go ahead and try to hold it down for 15 seconds, reset the IP address, and now you should be able to communicate with the camera without having to reboot the camera and lose your image data. Nobody wants that. That pretty much covers it. Just a quick recap. To set up the dual gigabit download on your SAX2 or SAZ camera, you want to make sure that your camera is set to the default. It's always a good place to start. You need 2 network adapters, each with jumbo packets enabled. You want to make sure that you label your ports so that you know what settings to make inside of your computer. Set the IP addresses properly. Make sure that jumbo packets is enabled. And then everything else is going to be pretty much transparent as far as the download. Really the easiest way to know whether or not it's downloading properly is going to be 1, the LEDs on the back of the camera. Both LEDs are going to be blinking during download. And 2, just the time. Your time is going to be cut in half as far as download time. And then I just showed you the way that you have the ability to reset the network card or the Ethernet card inside the camera without losing your image data. Thank you very much and have a great day.